I would describe cultural appropriation as taking something that has cultural, spiritual significance and stealing from it.
Cultural appropriation obviously is a huge thing, and it's very connected to colonialism and imperialism, of course. Cultural appropriation means this idea of one culture being able to take something from another culture, either without referencing the culture it came from, so saying, actually, I got that approach from these people that I worked with, or making a profit from it that never goes back to where you got it from. So that's another possibility. Another possibility of cultural appropriation is that we've taken something from somewhere else and completely changed the meaning and then used it in a completely different context to where to how it originated. So cultural appropriation works in all those different ways where, and the thing with cultural appropriation is we can't disconnect it to power, right? With cultural appropriation, we can't say actually all types of culture, one culture taking things from another culture are the same. They're not the same because historically power has not worked in exactly the same way across different cultures. So when certain cultures take things from other cultures, and with either without referencing or without kind of giving the profit back to or sharing the profit or the authorship with the people that it originated from, that's cultural appropriation. Of course, it's extremely tricky because at the same time we are saying to students, have diverse influences in your work, have a global perspective. At the same time we're saying, but you can't culturally appropriate. So there's a dichotomy, there's a contradiction there in the thing that we're asking students to do. I think that in a sense, what we want students to have is curiosity and knowledge about diverse perspectives, global approaches. At the same time, have an understanding of how power works. So if you both have that curiosity, but at the same time you do have an understanding of history, colonial history, imperialist history, of how cultural appropriation has worked, how power works, who has power, who doesn't have power, who has a voice, who doesn't have a voice. If we keep on interrogating those things, perhaps we can slightly mollify or slightly change that contradiction and say, actually, it's a dynamic contradiction. I can be curious about things, but at the same time understand how power works and realize that I can't just like go, okay, I'm just gonna be a Ghanaian designer. Well, you can't because you've never been to Ghana, So it's it's a very sensitive and a very difficult area, full of contradictions. But I think really goes back to the question of understanding how power has worked and keeps on working. What can we do that doesn't take the voice away from someone else? How can we work in an ethical way? How can we work in a reflective way? How can we work in a way that is satisfying to us creatively, at the same time doesn't shut off the voice of someone else? So the ethics of it, the collaborative kind of nature of it, the respectful nature of it can't be disconnected from the artistic and creative. So I think that's where students can think, I want to be reflective and ethical, and I want to be creative and artistic. And how can I, ask yourself questions all the time about this? And, there is no final answer, in fact.